Right on. Week 16 is one item, and I'll talk about it in a minute. But before I do that, I want to answer a question that several of you ask in this case, in the week 14, I believe, was about, I mentioned at the end of that video how much wonderful hiking is around us. And several of you asked, like, where is this wonderful hiking? So I want to show you just a couple of local favorites, I'd call them. And what I would say is, right, do your research. If you're going to go hiking, make sure you bring water. It's good to hike with other people, especially on longer hikes. Make sure you've planned for enough food. As it gets warmer in Central California, make sure you've planned for that weather if you're hiking later during the summer, beginning, middle, or end of summer. So all those things you have to take into consideration. Shorter hikes, obviously, you don't have to. So I'm going to give you kind of a combination of hikes. So one of the first things I did, just because I thought it would be fun, is I just searched on Google Maps hiking in Central California. And I'm like, oh yeah, some of these hikes are hikes I've done. Lewis Creek Trail, recreational center, very fun, very easy, doable right off the road, so you can check that out. Morrow Rock in the Sequoias takes a little more to get to, but is a awesome hike, and the big trees as well. And many people don't realize, but maybe you do, is that Roding Park for us actually has some really nice hikes around it, not only in the park, but outside of the park as well. And then one that I have always called Angel Falls, and now it makes sense because I would tell people about this hike and they would just look at me like, Angel Falls, what's that? Well, actually, it's more commonly called Willow Creek Trailhead. So I was like, well, no wonder people look at me funny. They're like, we've never heard of that hike. So, and that's actually one of the hikes I've been on probably the most over the years, just because it's a fun one to introduce to folks. And it hikes along the Rushing River coming down, not Russian River, but the river that was this creek that really is filling up part of what we call the feeding of water into Bass Lake. So that one is really fun. And the thing I would say to you is just make sure you keep safe. If that water is moving too quick, don't get out in it, right? So you can check out that one. But probably the one that I hear most people who have not hiked in Fresno not realize is there's one called Pincushion, and it's on the backside of Millerton Lake. And it's definitely a good hike. It comes up to a point that you have to climb up to that towards the end, and it's one that my friends who are more athletic go to the gym that I go to. They use that as a training hike, but it is really a beautiful hike. You get up pretty high to be able to see all across Millerton, so that's a fun one. And then if you're interested, out in Auberry, so this is where I was talking about before, but if you go all the way up, there actually is over here behind Albury as you head out, there's actually a San Joaquin River Gorge recreational area, and you can come down and there's a hike right here. I don't even know how to pronounce this one. They changed the name relatively recently, but you can use this hike just to go to a bridge that's really beautiful. It's like 1.5 miles, but if you want more of a hike, you can actually hike about a 7-mile hike. It's a loop hike down there. Now, for my birthday a couple of years ago, I had some friends and we hiked from Albury all the way down to Millerton. And it was one of those like where I learned how to do better planning. I'd always hike, not thinking about it. And there was not clearly a lot of people had done that hike. And so they didn't have a lot of information. I told my friends, I think it's about 15 miles. Well, it turned out to be like 21. We didn't take enough water. So, plan accordingly. Okay. So anyway, I think I would just tell you to start by searching hiking in Central California, because that's just the tip of the iceberg. There are definitely a lot more hikes. And of course, up in the Kings Canyon, Sequoia, and in Yosemite, there are some amazing hikes. I mean, doing some of the hikes up in these are really. I'm not even up there. I'm just showing you. Like if I get up in the Yosemite area, you can see just some of the amazing hikes that are up in there. My Google Map is not adjusting. So hike as often as you can, just because it is so fun to do. Okay, back to this. So this is our week 16. You have one item to do, and it is a item that some students find fun. Some students say is not so fun. But what it is we've been doing these lab assignments, right? For Word, Excel, and Access. And it's where you actually get hands on. Well, part of this class, and I actually am repeating a little bit of the instruction here, but is that part of this class requires you have some exposure and experience with doing coding. And we had a discussion about coding. Hopefully, you know by now. If you don't, I teach coding, programming development here at Fresno City College. And I would encourage any of you who want to, even if you don't want to go into this field, as I believe I said, related to that item, getting some experience with that is good. I'm just telling you, no matter where you end up, and for a lot of different reasons. But this is the week because this class requires you to get some hands-on coding experience. And our department, our CIT department here at Fresno City College, because I'm a full-time faculty, I work with the other full-time faculty, and they asked me, Rio, can you produce something for all students taking CIT 15 to complete a hands-on experience in your preferred language, which for me was JavaScript. And so what I've created, and you're going to experience this week, is this assignment, okay? Which is going to first introduce it, tell you what you need to do. You are going to need to sign up for an account on this website. So here's why. If you're thinking, oh, another website I have to sign up for, here's the benefit. Like my students who are taking my coding classes, we use a program called VS Code. Okay, and I'll just fire it up here just to kind of show you. And so when I'm coding in VS Code, I'm coding locally. And students learn to not only set up these environments, but use something called GitHub, and there's some other basic skills. And then, of course, in there we learn how to create apps, web pages. People may call an app a web page and a web page an app, and it really depends on its functionality. But in something like programming, we're adding functionality to a web page. Like I created one for tracking my EV, electronic vehicle charging cost for this semester for those students. So for that example, right? But that was something I want, and I would absolutely, if somebody had it in the App Store and had all the features I want, would have been absolutely something that I would have paid for. So, but obviously what you're going to do is not create an app. You're going to create a form. And if you think about it, anytime you type in something, whether it be search term, whether it be going to your favorite social media site. I say that because I just read your social media discussion board, and it was very interesting. I'm not going to go back to that because we could spend a whole other discussion about that. But anywhere you type in something and you hit search, you hit submit, that is a form. So you're going to get the experience this week of actually creating a form, and you don't have to do it in your local system. You're going to do it out on the web. So again, I'm not going to repeat what's here because I actually just produced this content last semester. I've had last semester students and all the other 15 students that were taking this class last semester follow this instruction. So I don't have anything to update. I think it works pretty well. But I am going to say one thing that I want you to understand about getting the most points here. Okay. So, again, I'm just kind of previewing what you're going to learn how to do. Okay. So, what you're going to learn how to do is create this form for the idea of payroll. Right now, this is you provide a name, you provide hours worked, and how much hourly pay you get, and then you calculate it. Right. So, you'll learn how this works, how to set up these things. Actually, I think I give you, because you're going to copy. And this is the process called forking, where you take my base code and then you write the JavaScript. Okay. So to get full points for this work, you have to go through, follow my instructions. You don't have to code on your own, but you do have to get the form working. What does that mean? That means if I was to fill out, it doesn't matter. This is not being captured anywhere. And I said I worked 40 hours a week and I made $20 an hour, right? When you calculate, it would say for the person that you entered, pay is 800. Now, I could have probably been more explicit to say, right, gross versus net. But the point about this is to learn based on watching somebody and following along how to code. And once you follow along, because I'm going to tell you, just typing is not the idea. And you may find yourself just kind of copying what I'm doing in there. But ultimately, for you to get all the points here, right, you'll need to have this working. So make sure when you're doing this work, you actually can, right? Now, in this case, when I bring it up, I have to hit run to make this, but you're going to end up giving me your URL so I can see that output. And how I will grade it is, did you set up the form, right? Did you fork my beginning code? And that's all part of the instruction. And did you get a working output? Did you get good output? Meaning it does actually take your hours worked and your pay rate and the name that you're giving it and output that information, right? So that data, you're giving it data, it's outputting information, but learning how to write that code and to write it correctly. So get that part done. Again, this is a nice item in the sense that it will help kick up your lab test score a little bit, and because it's in that overall category. Okay, so when you're done, the way, and I even talk about here at the end submitting it. The other thing you could do is, if you enjoy this, right, also maybe play around with, how to make this look a little more just unique to you, right? That's a good thing to do, because when you find stuff like this, again, some of you are going to be like, I like this. Some of you are going to be like, I don't. It's okay. Really, it's just something you need to do for this class, but also take it as an experience of what it's like, right? Again, anytime you use an app, know somebody has coded that application. And what you're going to do is get that experience of what it's like to do a simple form. So what you're submitting for this work is a URL, and you get that URL from setting up the website, forking my code, giving it a name, right? So once you're all done and you have a working form, payroll form, right, that URL is what you'll submit into here. Again, what I look for is, does it actually work? So if you submit something and it doesn't work, that's going to be like missing half the points. Okay, so make sure you follow that up. And it's good, okay, to ask on Discord if you have some questions about that. So this is, as I've started with talking about today, this is your only item this week. And really, I'm going to go ahead, in addition to releasing week 16, I am going to release week 17 as well. I don't normally do a start here for week 17, but I'm going to this week, this semester. And it says finals week here. So I'm going to change this up. When you see it, might look a little different. I talked about, I believe, last week, the whole idea of the end of the semester. So if you have any questions, I would definitely recommend you go check out week 15 for details on understanding the end of the semester. how it works, um, all that information. But I will do one more start here for next week, for week 17 next week, and that will be the final one. Okay? All right. Hope you have fun. Hope that helps you out. Reply anything, right? Give me some comment that lets me know you watched it. Hey, did you notice no headphones today? Yeah, I actually got a new microphone. And I wonder if even before I said that, had you noticed any difference in the audio? Anyway, have a good one. Bye.